flatulent, or farted in a submissive's hose once wearing a gas mask. Imagine that. My last show that I did right before my surgery was about eproctophilia, which is a fart fetish. So think about it. Having a submissive wear a gas mask with a respirator hose attached where you could put, like, stinky things and, like, a clove of garlic, a dirty used cigarette butt. Myself and other doms would think it would be funny to fart in the tube so the submissive gets to breathe in the noxious gas fumes from myself and other dames' asses, right? And I've done this pretty early in my career too, which was kind of interesting. I was working out of this dungeon in Manhattan at one time, and I think I was about 16 or 17 years old, kind of learning the ways to become a mistress or learning to be a dominatrix. And there was this older dom there, and not elder, but older than me. At the time, I think I was like 16, 17. She was like 40. And she was like, oh, you gotta try this fart fetish. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, guys, like, they really think women who fart are disgusting. So, like, there are some dudes who are really into it. And I was like, really? I'm like, tell me more. So she starts telling me about how, like, she has a sub that, like, lives in her house and cleans. And he really enjoys when, she sends him on an errand to Taco Bell or something, and he used to pick up, like, like Mexican food or Chinese food or whatever type of food that she would eat that would make her very gassy. And she said while he was cleaning her house naked in, proper Gorian slavery, she would walk up to him and put, like, her ass crack right in the bridge of his nose, or, like, she would grab him, like, behind forcefully from his head and his neck and, like, kind of place his face, like, right in the crack of her ass. And she said she would, like, go to town, like, fart in his face, and he'd stand there and, like, breathe in every, like, gassy, farty fume she, like, blow in his face. And then I started laughing, and I said, wow, that's really funny, because without knowing this, I have done this to my brothers growing up. I have an older sister, and then I'm the middle child, and I have 2 younger brothers. So when I was growing up, my brothers used to kind of pick on me a little bit, even though they were younger than me. But I would always do things back to them that were quite disturbing. Like, for instance, I would walk up to my brother who'd be sitting there watching TV or playing with Atari or Nintendo at the time, and I would actually go and, like, grab him by the back of his head and put his, like, face by my rear end, and I would fart in his face, and he'd be like, you're fucking disgusting. Like, he would get mad. But in reality, then I had my younger brother, who I did it to, and he used to get, like, so red in the face. He used to be, like, embarrassed over it. That, to me, is a form of humiliation, when you're, like, doing something to somebody that makes them feel embarrassed by it. Embarrassing situations are, in fact, a form of different types of humiliation, whether you're, like, farting in someone's face, or you have, like, some guys, like, subs out in public, or you're at a play party and there's a bunch of them kind of just sitting there, and dames and other mistresses and masters will kind of walk up to them and, do things to them to make them feel, like, embarrassed. Like, for instance, most slaves and submissives in dungeons and house parties are usually naked, right? So when this submissive is naked and they're in the dungeon, you could basically walk up to them. They're very vulnerable. They basically are, in a predicament. They're in a naked, subservient form, and doms and dames and masters are walking up to them, kind of humiliating them, like whether they find something about you personally, do they know that it would be embarrassed to you, or they would order you to put on girly attire. Now, not every submissive is into cross-dressing, okay? In my 32 years of being a dominatrix, there are no 2 submissives that are exactly the same. And other people may beg to differ with me, but in my own humble, honest opinion, there are no two that are exactly the same. I've had straight male submissives be in my good graces that were not into cross-dressing, so when they would be in front of me for either a pro-dom session or serving me in person, like they were my actual sub or slave, I would force them to wear, like, girly clothes just because I wanted to see them in it. They may not have liked it, but they were literally had no choice because it makes me happy. And the whole game plan for a submissive is to keep your mistress or master happy, no matter what it costs or whatever it takes. Your role is to make us happy, okay? Your role is to be the entertainment. I have told other submissives in the past that they are court jesters and I'm the queen. So in a traditional setting like an Alice in Wonderland, when they have the Queen of Hearts, she has all of her court jesters that are there to make her happy. They're there to entertain her. They're there to take care of her, to put her on that pedestal so she knows she's queen and has all these minions beneath her that she can control with different forms of humiliation, different forms of bondage, different forms of wax play, sensory deprivation, power play, role playing, and bondage. So it's kind of similar to being a dominatrix, right? Dominatrixes, or most submissives, refer to doms as queens or goddesses. In my humble, honest opinion, I like to be called a mistress. I think a goddess for me is not very fitting. I don't think I really fit a goddess category. Although I am pretty hot, from what I've been told by people throughout my lifetime. So I guess it could be either or. So it's kind of interesting. It's funny, I always read these things online. And in 2016, 47% of women and 60% of men have fantasized about dominating someone in a sexual context. And what this means is... How many of you out there are listening to the show tonight, and you're not really into kink, but you have friends that have been in a lifestyle, so you hear like all kinds of different things, right? And what I mean by different things is you hear your kinky friends saying, oh, you know, me and so went out and we tried spanking for the first time and it really turned me on. It really made me hot. So now when I have sex with my partner, like this is what I've heard people say, that even vanilla people really didn't know anything about anything that tried spanking for the first time. They said it was a big turn on for them. It made them feel almost inferior to the person who was spanking them. And that's what a submissive feels. A submissive is inferior to a dominant. Now, there's also submissives who are subservient and inferior at the same time, which means a subservient individual is somebody who's truly submissive. And I don't mean like a doormat. I mean somebody who has the gift of submission, that wants to submit to somebody because maybe in their regular life they're in a high power exchange job, like they might be a cop, a lawyer, a psychiatrist even, and they need to see somebody else to release that power exchange. Like they want somebody else to be in control over them so for a little while, so they get to be in that fun subspace that they long crave for. But in their regular vanilla life, they have a high power job to where they can't, and they're always in control and they're controlling everybody else. So in that situation, they're kind of like dominants in the vanilla world. But they can't handle being like that all the time because that's not who they really are. So they come to a dominatrix to kind of live out a fantasy, whether it's through role play or role reversal, where they want to be subservient to someone else who's in control or someone else who has that power. So BDSM comes in many shapes, forms, and sizes, all different things, no matter how you practice BDSM. The dominant always has a set of rules, and it's their rules, their way with that submissive, and kind of interesting if you think about it. Now, how BDSM works in relationship with sex, okay? So this is another interesting subject. When you practice BDSM, sex within relationships, it can be enjoyable for both people, right? Many people who engage in BDSM see it as a form of release, like I was talking about before, or an explanation, or an exploration of trust, or a space to act out fantasies of submission, become vulnerable, and control. So it's kind of interesting. I talk to a group of people, and they always tell me that they do like BDSM studies because they say people who practice BDSM are in fact bipolar or have different, not bipolar, but you have two split personalities. You're your vanilla self, like me, I'm my vanilla self, right? Then when I'm in this mode of whatever, when I'm engaging with a submissive, whether it's for long-term or short-term, online training, whatever, they say that BDSM practices or dynamics may reduce stress and improve moods, believe it or not, because people are getting that extra kink that they would not normally get from a regular vanilla relationship. So, you know, the heightened kinkness of it, or the fetishy aspects, bringing into a vanilla relationship, like where you're doing spanking for the first time, or you're trying to like put a ball gag in your partner's mouth to kind of hush them up while you like do filthy things to them in the bedroom, or you're, you know, have them restrained with pantyhose or handcuffs, or, you know, if you're into rope, you know, rope bondage, shibari, tying knots, all that kind of stuff, seems to be pretty fun, right? So when a vanilla person tries this for the first time, it could actually make them have a severe mood elevation to where they're almost feeling like the one person who does the tying up, and then that's the giver, the dom. Then you have like the receiver, which is the other person who's acting subservient or acting submissive to the other person, allowing them to tie them up, vice versa. Role reversal, kinky types of role play where I've seen couples, you know, a woman will dress up as a sexy nurse and tie her husband up and give him a sponge bath, and then he'll pretend like he's sick, and she'll say, oh, you know, you'll need me to take your temperature, and, you know, naughty nurse wife will bend the husband or boyfriend over and kind of stick him with a big thermometer up his butthole, meaning like she's going to peg him, like give him some heavy-duty strap-on play and taking his temperature. So other people say that participating in healthy BDSM scenes fostered feelings of intimacy between partners. So basically, if you've never tried any aspect of kinky BDSM sex, you really should. It'd be good for your relationship. Even if you and your partner try it and one of you is like hesitant or reluctant to try to continue to do it, you should just try it anyway. I mean, my whole thing is you don't knock it until you try it. So, I mean, you know, my growing up and being dominant or being a submissive first and then becoming a dom later in life, finding out real quick that I wasn't really submissive. Anybody who knows me in my vanilla life will even tell you I'm not really submissive at all. I have a very hardcore dom streak in me that I just can't help what I say sometimes. It just flies out of my mouth. Like I always tell my friends, my mouth is like a magician's hat. You never know what's going to come out of it. So whether it's vulgarity, something dirty, or just me being me in general, it's a very hard thing to shut off. Like, you know, like switches in particular. These are individuals who top for somebody else, but then with that right person, they're submissive to someone else also. So that's what you call a switch. That's someone who plays both roles in a role-playing type situation. Or within BDSM, role-playing, you know, role reversal, doctor-nurse scenario, teacher-student scenario. The list goes on and on. You could do doctor and young patients